Hello. How you doing? Good to see you human beings, rather than Zoom pixelations. Yeah, really glad, really happy to be back in doing CDR Sessions in person. You know, we've all had a very interesting almost couple of years, right? You know, so it's actually fantastic to be at Corsica again. Big up to Corsica Studios, people. Thank you so much. Awesome space. Awesome renovations. You've been busy. Definitely for the better. It's definitely great and very much looking forward to doing some great things. If this is your first time, my name is Tony Wachiku. You are at CDR. CDR is a platform for music producers and people who love music to come and share what you're working on, as well as having an opportunity to speak to fantastic, innovative producers such as Roska here. So give it up for Roska. Cool. So the next kind of 45 minutes to an hour or so, we're going to just really, get some insight into Roska's productions and his kind of journey in the time that he's been, sharing music with us. But before we dig into that, how you doing, sir? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Really good. Yeah, man.
So I hear that you have a new studio. You've spent time over lockdown rebuilding a studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So break it down. We're just going to get straight to it.
Yeah. So
what is your studio setup?
Yeah.
Like every cable.
Yeah.
Every piece. We just need to know.
Yeah. I mean, I moved out to Kent because my house just got really small where I was living. So. And there was the guy that we bought the place from. He was a carpenter, so he basically had this big shed in the back garden, and it was massive. It was like not just like your conventional shed, what you think, but it's like it was big and it had electric in there, everything. So I thought let me get someone to build inside of it and soundproof it and everything. And as time got on, I was meant to get a quote. So my friend Swindle, he lives literally 10 minutes from me, and his next door neighbor was meant to give me a quote. And as I was waiting for the quote, I just started Googling, Pinterest, YouTube, trying to work out how to do it myself. So I've done everything myself apart from electrics and plasterings. So it's basically soundproof. It's in the middle of nowhere, so it's like no one can bother me. So yeah,
indeed. And
the equipment inside. I mean, that's what I was getting to. And then I forgot. What I was going to get to. So with the equipment inside, I work quite inside the box a lot, but I think as time goes on, now I've got a bigger space. I want to sort of like get more into the outboard gear as well. Generally, I use a lot of like Native Instruments stuff. I use UAD for like my processing as well as waves.
Interface as well?
Interface, yeah, UAD interface. Actually, no, maybe just the actual sound card.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, generally use that inside. And what else do I use? That's my main sort of like go-to plugins, really, sort of native instrument stuff. And I've got like 10, 15 years worth of like drums and stuff that I've been like collecting and buying and sampling throughout my time making music. So yeah.
But obviously, the years of having, this amassed plugins and amassing UAD, satellites, etc. It was obviously humble beginnings with just a PC and Fruity Loops, right?
That's right, yeah.
So let's go right back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And your first releases.
Yeah.
And your first setup.
Yeah.
So what was your very first setup?
It was a Dell PC. That cost me about £400, $399 actually. And it was just Dell PC with a cracked version of FL Studio.
Standard.
Yeah. Yep. What else did I have? Yeah, just a small controller, 25 key controller keyboard, and that was me. I had the Motu sound interface for a bit, and I had what else did I have? There was another one I had, but I remember the Motu one that I had. That was my main one, and then I was literally building up every time. Like I would speak to someone, mention like we talk about like plugins and whatever and like just hardware. They'd always say you're gonna get to using a UAD or whatever. So I got to that point like about 6 years ago. But yeah, it took me a while to kind of like bite the bullet and just buy it.
So at that time when you had the $399 Dell PC,
what
was the music landscape? What was what first of all got you to decide to actually start making music?
Yeah.
And when you started releasing music, what was the scene like at that time?
So I started making music around 99, and It was more understanding music
What
from
do you
like
mean
an
by
electronic from an electronic point of view of like there was no one really around me that I could go to or speak to or even understand what I was doing. So it was just so experimental. FL Studio was like the go-to thing. It was just step editor and just kind of make anything. Do you know what I mean? You know, when I got to about 2006, I started to progress. So it was like I was going work, and then every time I come home from work, to make music was like my wind down. So I'd come home, take my tie off, and then straight away hour, make music, then go and have some food. It was like, that was my wind down. And as time got on, I just got better and better. I felt my progression, like, you know, in my beats and just the way I was making the music. And I was at the time I was into grime, so I was listening to a lot of grime and garage as well. And that was around about 2006. And then I was ready to sort of like start putting music out, and I lost a lot of music, like a lot of the stuff that I was meant to put out. And during that time, I was listening to
Lost it how? Like hard drive corrupted?
Yeah, hard drive just corrupted, virus, because that was the PC for everything.
But you know you needed the backup, right? I'm not going to say that again.
Yeah,
I know you've learned that one.
The crazy thing is, I had backups, but not of those tracks. So it was like, I felt like I just needed a restart. It was like a refresh of like, so I've got some of the tracks, but there's like, I've got like 2003, 4, and then 5's missing and 6. Do you know what I mean? So like, backups were happening, but not as frequent. Yeah, just that bit missing. So yeah, I got to like 2005 and 6, and I was listening to a lot of like house and broken beats and Bruck, like Bugs in the Attic, and just like kind of like listening to stuff that was a little bit slower than grime, and just had like, it was more about the grooves and like just understanding like you know, spaces in music, and like, you know, how can I fit so much into one track without making it sound like just a load of garbage, you know what I mean? I was listening to like a lot of like Timbaland's drum patterns, and like a lot of DMB as well, jungle, and just understanding like different drum patterns and just styles basically.
No, I'm glad you've mentioned, you know, styles, because for me listening, it's been obviously fantastic knowing your music for all this time, but you know, in kind of checking your music again, you know, it's really great to see that, you know, you've got your own style and aesthetic, but you kind of navigate, you almost like, you know, weave through, you know, it's not quite funky, it's not quite drill, not quite grime, not quite house, you know, you kind of, you know, you're kind of like curving through, you know, navigating the scene, which is great, because I think a lot of the time, you know, particularly, you know, producers who feel that they've got to make a particular kind of music, you know, for a particular scene. Actually, it's all about being a little bit sharper than that, and actually, you know, paying homage to a scene, but also personalizing it, which is what you've done really well.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like, you know, the only way you're going to stand out in a scene or a genre is putting your own stamp on it, and whether that's going back into time and looking at what it started with and how they made it from the initial, or looking at what is not being done today, and also just looking at what you can do differently to what, you know, the top 10 producers are doing as well. And you know, and I've always liked to be unique, you know, whether it's and a lot of my music is like, it's not about, you know, trying to be the best, or it's about what can I do to make a stamp, what can I do that people can understand or and look at in a different way, and how, you know, from a club point of view and DJ, it's like, how can I make my music stand out, you know, compared to what everyone else is doing? What can I do, and how can I make the DJs still play it as well? So it's all those challenges, as well as trying to make a good song as well.
It's like the Venn diagram, trying to please, you know, DJ yourself and innovate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So let's look at that Venn diagram from a sonic point of view. I'm just going to play you a couple of your tunes.
Yeah. Okay.
And just talk us through, you know, when you made it, and some of your thinking behind them, because I've chosen quite different tracks deliberately, right?
Okay,
so
cool,
just
brilliant.
to demonstrate what you're saying.
Yeah.
Cool. First one. Roska. Long build up.
Let's go.
Yes, so that one's Roskalian, right? Do you know what? Like, there was a period where I was just making loads of tunes, and yeah, sometimes I forget the names of them because
Because you're so prolific, man. So,
So yeah, that one, yeah. Do you know? It's like I like to tap into the grime side of all my music as well, and what I listen to and understand what I grew up on as well. Because a lot of like there was like a sweet spot in like my in like what I used to listen to of music is around 2000, 2003 of like grime. Listen to like a lot of like Wiley, like Pay As You Go, a lot of Rinse, and a lot of dancehall as well. And it all kind of like merges into the same sort of like paint pot, like of like what was going on in London at that time, and what I was listening to, and that's how that sort of like the skippy drums was like a lot of like just grime and just seeing how I can drop the tempo by 10 BPM to 130, or I think it's like 128, but around that tempo, and kind of still have that same groove and swing, and the grittiness of it. Because during that period, like from like when I first started to, I'd say around about 2012-ish, a lot of my tunes, even now, but more then, it wasn't about mixing down the tunes. It was just about how does it feel? Do you get what I'm saying? It wasn't even about how it sounded. It was like just smack a limiter on it and just let's go. Do you know what I mean? And that's with those tunes. The same with Roskalian. That's what that had at that time. And I think that one came out on Rinse around about 2012. I think, if I'm right. Yeah.
I'm glad you've mentioned this because it sounds exactly that. There's a rawness to it that definitely is reminiscent of kind of like grime tracks of the time.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you just again, a lot of the time as producers we can get so obsessed with our master bus, what's limiting sidechain, all that layers and layers and layers and layers. But sometimes it's just about kicks and snares. Yeah. And a dirty bass line. Yeah. And done. Literally, limiter and done.
It's just about, sometimes it's just simplicity can go further than being technical. And I learnt that like early, and I just continue to just let that go throughout my whole career. Like you'll see it through like a lot of my productions. It's just a lot of them just really simple, just basic stuff. But I think as I got older and just learnt, I started messing about with Logic and doing a bit more automation and a few other bits. But generally, it was about just whatever I can do. Especially with FL Studio, it's very, at the time when I was using it, it was very limited. So a lot of the time, there wasn't, a lot going on, or it was quite technical to do certain things, like even just doing a bit of automation, But now it's a bit more easier now. But yeah, then it wasn't as easy. So you just go, you know what? Let me leave that. I just
classic case of less is more, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next one. Nice. Cool. So for me, that you're kind of you're exploring the floor four.
Yep.
You thought, let me try and make something that's kind of on the house tip.
Yeah.
Go enter that kind of territory, but no, I'm going to get bored.
Yeah.
And kind of you've got to switch it up. You've got to give it
Yeah.
some swing. You've got to give it some syncopation.
That's it. So that was like, I think it was like probably the first year or second year of me releasing music under Roska and under my own label. And I was kind of still finding my feet as well, I felt like, because I was releasing my music, but it was like, when UK funky as a genre sort of like popped up, it was like, it was still quite in discovery mode at the same time. So it was kind of not, everybody was still like surprised or like, I don't know, like they wasn't sure what it was. Do you get what I'm saying? So with that, it was like, I was still in sort of like the house mode, like what am I trying to do? Do you know what I mean? So I bought, my first release was like Feline, and then I had like Climate Change, and then I had a few more, and then I had that one, the TWC EP as well. So it was kind of like trying to find what was where I felt I could sit down. And it was, to be fair, that tune, it was like, because I was in discovery mode, I didn't know where it would take me or who would pick it up, and it was kind of cool to like look and see, got on like fabric mixes and stuff like that, during my time as well. So yeah, again with that one, trying to find space. How can I make a house tune not sound like a house tune, but be a house tune at the same time? By adding broken beats into it, but getting house DJs to play it as well. So it was kind of like thought process behind it, but still trying to find out where I sat within the spectrum of music as well. Yeah.
It's quite brave, because I think a lot of the time, we again, as producers, a lot of us tend to, obviously, when you release something, you release it from a place of confidence.
Yeah.
You've invested a lot of time and effort in making a record, and then obviously investing in it somehow, obviously your own label.
Yeah.
But you're sort of saying, you know what, I'm going to bring this out and see where it sits. I'm not quite sure if people are going to be into it or not. I kind of got an idea of where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So that takes not balls, but it takes some kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, I had a job at the time as well, so I didn't have nothing to really lose at the time as well. So and I think that's quite important as well, like just to have something so you don't feel like you're forced into doing something you don't want to do to break your creativity. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, that was one thing. It was like I was working night shifts, so I'll go and press up a couple of records up in North and then come back home South and then see how it goes. And like, luckily, record shops were taking it. I was dropping them off. With pressing records, I was very inspired by Wiley. I remember listening to a Wiley interview, and he was like, he had a box full of boxes of records in the back of his car, and I was inspired by that. I can do this myself. I can go out and have my car full of records and go out to these record shops and sell them and go and collect money and stuff like that. So that was kind of a nice little driving incentive for me as well. So, and it was easy to press records up 2 weeks, and records are pressed up. And
bring back those days.
Yeah, man. So yeah, it was good times, man. Good times pressing up, and again, yeah, with that experimental, like even on that as a 4-tracker, and one of the tracks was still a funky track called Without It. So again, I was still trying to feel, and I do that with a lot of my EPs, where if I do like 3 to 4 tracks or more, I'll have at least 1 track or 2 tracks that will be a curveball. Are you going to play that? Do you know what I mean? Or something that people might not play or whatever, just to see if I can tap into that market or tap into, or get other people to be a bit more adventurous in the way that they play as well. So, yeah.
So what was it like to, but by the same token, obviously the way funky kind of emerged, what was it like from your standpoint, being a producer and a fan of music? What was it like to see the kind of the funky sound kind of emerge and then almost like obviously go into the mainstream for a while?
Yeah.
What was that like to be in that for you?
It was kind of weird. Like it was kind of, I think when you're living in the moment, you don't really think of it, because like I was saying this to one of the other producers as well, and it's like none of us were really thinking about like deeply what we're actually doing, but we're actually making a new genre of music, but we're not really thinking about what we're actually doing. We're making all these original tunes, and DJs are just playing them constantly, and it's like, it's only when you sit back, or like a few years back, you look back and go, we were actually was part of like some sort of history where we was actually making something where, you know, people actually, you know, like even now it feels weird, like I get people like messaging me or like at the clubs and be like, I grew up on your tunes. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, man, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like looking at that and then, you know, looking back at what we did, it's like, it's just weird that we wasn't even thinking how it would be perceived like now or how it would be looked at. But at the time, it was literally like, make tunes, give it to the DJs play it, we release it and see what happens. And that was the rotation. We just kept doing that. And I was a high believer in, you know, consistency is key. Just keep being consistent with the tunes, keep putting the music out and seeing where it takes you. And, you know, a lot of the other artists, not a lot of them took that on, but I never had nothing to lose because I never had a job. I had a job, you know, and it was like, I'll just continue doing it and see what happens, man. It's a nice hobby.
And were you ever tempted to kind of, you know, ride the kind of more mainstream coattails at any point?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of times, like, so I done a tour with KEB for when she done her first album. I was like one of the warm-up DJs for her tour, and you know, the more and more I listened to the tunes, I started adding more bridges to my tracks, working with more vocalists, and kind of like building something. But at the same time, it kind of I felt like even though it was adding to what I was doing, it was kind of taken away as well. I felt like it took away a bit of the grit and the edge that I had as well. So it's trying to find that balance of having, you know, good tunes, polished tunes, and like I mentioned earlier when I was saying about like you know, that period where I moved to like Logic and I was working with more automation and stuff like that. That was around that time as well. So I was trying to find that balance of having the grit and having, you know, sweet vocals on top, and trying to find a happy medium where I can get good radio plays and still, you know, have good club music at the same time. So again, it was like an hour thought process of what can I do to have that balance as well.
I mean, did you ever feel a sense of pressure, you know, when, you know, you, from a writing point of view, you have to start considering things like mid-lates and choruses and, you know, having productions that are a little bit more sophisticated because, A, the benchmark, in terms of mainstream, you know, the bar has been raised. Did you ever feel a sense of pressure to kind of...
No, because what I made sure I did or done at that time was I consciously made sure that I didn't alienate my fan base, or I tried not to. So I always made sure that if I'm going to release a vocal track, I've got to release an instrument, I've got to release something that's going to be club based. So if I'm going to do something for radio, then I've got to make sure that I'm going to be making sure that no one's going to walk away and be like, you know, Roska's gone. Do you know what I mean? And I understand that from like a fan point of view as well, you know. Sometimes you know, you hear and then, you know, artists that may not want to go in that same path. They want to do something different. But I feel like as an artist, I feel like you have to find that balance of enjoying it yourself and also making sure your fans or people that enjoy your music enjoy it too as well. You know,
lots of layers.
Yeah, a lot.
Cool. So this is good because it goes into this next track, which I think, you know, you managed to achieve what you're talking about.
Ooh.
yeah, that was around that at that time as well. That it was like I want to do some more like radio stuff and and kind of again finding that medium of like keeping the grit but keeping it clean as well. You know, that I got KEB's engineer actually mixed that one down as well for me, so that made it even more cleaner than usual, because I'm used to mixing my own stuff and keeping it just slap a limit around. You know what I mean? That's it. So that was having that it changed my perspective of what I can do to make, you know, because it's like with experimental music, you're just learning on the job, like you're just doing, you know what I mean? Everything is just about, you know, you just add bits onto your arsenal every time you make a new tune or whatever, and until you get to a point where you can do whatever you like. And during that time, it was good working with a vocalist, session vocalist, and also seeing how they work as well, because it was like work experience for me as well, like, you know, seeing how someone works and seeing what they want from you and pushing you to a point where, you know, you're not used to all that, do you know what I mean? But you want to learn and get it as well. And
how different was it? Because obviously when you're working on your own, you know, you've got a vision for exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Even if you're in discovery mode, right? But
That's right.
You're in control of the track, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I guess when you're working with a vocalist, they've got different ideas about song structure and where things are placed. So how did you navigate working with, say, Vanya for that?
So we're working with Vanya was good. It was like so I built part of the track already, and then I sent it to her. And then she already had sort of a rough idea. Then we jumped in the studio together, and then we worked out what we both wanted and where we could take it. And then how I usually work is once I've got all the vocals that I need, then I'll take it back and do post-production and work out arrangement and how it's going to sound. And then if we need more, then we'll jump in the studio again. And then once that's done, then we'll polish it up and get it mixed and what have you. But overall, it was the experience was good because she was more experienced than me in a studio environment. So for me, and that was one of the reasons why I moved from FL Studio at that time, because I was on a PC at that time as well. So FL Studio was only on a PC. And then so I got myself a MacBook, and I moved over to Logic and started learning how to do, you know, to record vocals and just understand sort of like more than what FL could show me at that time. And then, shortly after, I mean, it's like, I think it's been about 5 years now, I think. So FL Studio has been on Mac, so it's been good to kind of get back.
So you went back? Yeah.
I opened up the PC, brought all the projects over.
Old habits, old habits.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm glad, you know, with this particular track with Desire, because I loved it because it was, again, you're in discovery mode, right? You know, particularly with how you're working with Vanya. But I like the fact that, you know, you've got, you know, the drums are quite syncopated in the beginning. Yeah. And it, you know, it's kind of brock in places. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You know, but still grimy. You know, you've kind of got a really, really good balance. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, again, in true Roska style, you haven't, you know, a lot of it's unpredictable in terms of where there's some predictability in terms of drops and stuff. But for example, there's no relationship between the drums at the beginning and the rest of the programming. You know, so was that something that was intentional on your part?
I feel like even though I was still discovering what and who I am musically as well, it's like you still got to understand your identity as well, and what you're gonna do. And one thing I do with Roska is I keep it like, now it's more you know what you're gonna get to a certain extent, but I know what I should and shouldn't do, like mentally. Sometimes I can't explain it, but it's like I know what.
So so do you get up in the morning and look in the mirror and go, is it a Roska day or not? Or, you know, is it, am I going to make a Roska tune today? Yeah, so you have to kind of almost like go alter ego kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, even with over the last 4 years, I've started making more dancehall as well. So even then, it's like it's a different hat. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to work out where you're gonna take it. But generally, if it's Roska, I know it's a Roska day. I know what limitations I've got to work with. I know what paints I'm gonna use to make this
limiter. Just limiter.
Yeah,
and done.
Smack the limiter on. Let's go.
Cool. So talk to us about this Presme track that you did. Because it's another fantastic collaboration.
Yeah. So since 2010, I've been every 18 months roughly, I go to Japan, and I do a show out. I do a couple of shows. I'll play Tokyo and Osaka, and then I'll do if I'm if I do a tour, I'll do like an Asia tour, then I'll go on to do China and what have you. So I'd always go to Japan, and they showed me so much love. And like the first time I went, like literally about a few months before, literally my Twitter, when Twitter was literally the only one sort of like social media platform bar Facebook and whatever, but it was like that everybody was messaging me in Japanese. So I'd have to copy and paste it, put it into Google Translate to work out what's, but literally they do their research. They've done research before I even got there. So even though they didn't know who I was, they wanted to know, so that when they go, and it was DJ Zinc that actually invited me to come. Like, so he was going out there all the time playing for this promotional company called DBS Tokyo, and so they brought me out, and I played warm up to DJ Zinc over there the first time in 2000, and I think it's 2010 or 2011, and ever since then I've been going out every 18 months. I'll go out there and play a couple of shows, and it got to 2016, 17, and I was like, I've got to do more than this, than play shows and be paid for it. I want to do more. I want to build something, because I know there's more to it. And I built a nice little fan base over there, and it was And then I spoke to this label out there that I worked. I'd always put them on my shows. Whenever I'd go, I'd say, look, these guys got me on my show, because they know they play a lot of UK stuff. They play a lot of like funky or tracks that sound like funky as well over there. So and I said to them, let me do a release on your label, because like, I think it would work well. I think there's something there. And we started working. I said, send me some rappers that you work with. And they sent me a couple. One guy called On Juicy, and another rapper called Nakamura Minami. She's young rapper, man, but she's got so much energy, man. And so we worked on a couple of tracks, done a double release, and before the release was ready, because they kept pushing it back, which worked in our favor. So all through 2019, releases getting pushed back to 2020. And when I was out there in 2019, I said, I was literally I was in Tokyo for 12 hours. I was tired, man. But before that, as I was getting there, I was messaging someone out there and said, like, can we film a video? I want to film a video. Like, so I spoke to a few people, and one guy I know, he said, look, I can film, but I can't edit. So he said, take the footage, bring an SD card, I'll film it. So we managed to film it in Shibuya, which is like in Tokyo. It's like, the big crossing that you see on like most films, what have you. So like we filmed under like a couple of footbridges and stuff like that. And literally I was there, done my show. We filmed. I went back to sleep, done my show, and then left. Literally straight after my show, hour, got ready and then left, and took the footage with me. And in January was ready to go to release it, end of January 2020. And literally it was like one of their biggest tracks in like the underground for them, man. But yeah, it kind of like it's weird when you're making music, you don't really think about. I mean, sometimes you do, but generally when you think about it, it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. But I didn't think much about the track, and I think because it got pushed back so much, I was like, you know what, let's get this release out. And literally overnight, it was crazy. Like the label over there, they were saying that they got. They've had like blogs that they've never even heard of over in Japan, like hitting them up, and they've got a lot of coverage based off that one track, man. And
by you just taking a punt, right?
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah. I just want, again, it was just me just experimenting and seeing what I can do to, merge two cultures, man, and like me with the UK sound and my Jamaican heritage with Japanese heritage, and working, trying to build something, and it works really well, man. And I built a nice rapport over there with the guys over there. So. Yeah. So
I'll play a little snippet from over here, and then you can obviously work your discovery mode for us anyway on there. Right. So this is a track. Okay, let's go, man.
Yeah.
Break it down.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was like with this one, simplicity is key, man, for the whole track. It was, I learned that, especially with rappers and singers, it's all about having space within your tracks. It's giving them space to breathe and do what they want to do, and then you can add whatever you want on top. But for this one, I just wanted to keep it as minimal as possible, you know, for me, it was like digging deep to find inspiration in specific tracks. And what I like to do is bring things back, you know, that we will listen to. And like, so if you listen to like, you know, like Major Lazer or stuff like that, sometimes you can hear, you know, if you listen to specific tunes and you can put things in and subliminally, you don't even know you've heard it or you heard something similar to it. And I like to do that with a lot of my tunes as well, like that, you know, just bring things in that, you know, you don't even know you're hearing it, why you like it as well. So kind of working from a deeper conscious rather than just always being surface as well. So with this one, I wanted to keep it as minimal as possible. And there's a lot of like drums that I was messing about with that, you know, that were different as well. And I was just trying to find something that could match her energy and come with something that's fresh, that you might not have heard before, but you might have heard before in a weird, you know what I mean? So it's like trying to find that balance. So yeah, just like, you know, I'll give you an example. Yes, like even this. So like even with that, it's like inspired by.
Was that her vocal?
Yeah? No, this is just another vocal I found. I sent that to her with everything already, but it was like I just wanted to give her something like bare minimum, like just a minimal. So like what I gave her was basically this meter vocals. Is this the VIP one actually? Let's go. Let's have a look. Sorry, give you this one. No. So this is what I gave her. Really, really minimal. Even with like the, where is it? So just as basic as you can for a melody. Just kept it as simple as I can.
So in terms of giving her something to work with,
yeah.
So no drums, just literally just a.
So I gave her. This is what I gave her in total. So I gave her just this loop here, but I just looped it around and then. Roska.
And you just loop that for 5 minutes, and then you got her to run off that. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and like, you know, even like when listening to it, it's like, you know, it's kind of got like an 8-bar sort of like grime feel to it as well, where, you know, the bass goes from low to high low to high every 8 bars.
The tuned kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's every 4 bars, but yeah, like, so it's got that kind of like switch, so it keeps it exciting, just for her to keep going.
So we would like to see each track soloed, please. I can hear it from here somewhere.
Yeah, so we start from the kick.
Fuddy kick.
And then sometimes I put like a bit of just kind of like give it a bit of a shuffle as well. I mess about with like a few different bits on there to kind of give it a bit. Sometimes I play it in on my key. I play the hats in my key on my keyboard, and then I sometimes like to keep it real time. But I think I quantize these as well. But sometimes I do mess about with my hats and kind of give them a bit more of a swing. I might have done this on this one. Let's have a look.
And generally, do you keep your velocities, at the same? Do you ever mess with velocities levels at all?
Now and then I do more on the Roska stuff, because on the Roska stuff I kind of keep it same, because it's always been like that. So I kind of don't mess about.
Just
it
very
too
driven,
much.
very
That's right.
It is what it is. Kind of.
Yeah. What's this?
Nice.
Yeah. So
great snare.
You kind of layer it as well. So I've got that snare as well. And then the vocal.
So is that two separate samples, and was one reversed and?
So it's one sample, and then what I've got is on the first. So with
like a
FL,
pitch.
you can you can pitch bend it.
Can we see the data for that, please?
Not really much. It's like it's just basically just kind of change that.
Is that note information or?
So
cool.
so it's all in key.
Yeah.
If I.
It's almost like a glissando kind of thing.
Yeah. So most of the time, I think I might have just sampled it and resampled it into the root key, C. But yeah, that's kind of generally. So as you can see, like I've got it going down, sliding down, and then sliding back up again as well. Just to keep that going.
Nice, that's a great hook.
And then just small percussion on this one.
Nice. And again, do you tend to keep your does Roska tend to keep his drums and percussion very raw, not much use of effects?
Yeah, I mean, even this, I think, if I'm right, there's a few bits of EQ on there, but I use quite a lot of clean samples, so if I don't really have to do too much to them.
So kind of pre-processed already, I guess.
Yeah. Generally, like I do like it speeds up my process in making music, because I can spend I don't think I spent too long on this, to be fair. Do you know what I mean?
How long's not too long?
I could spend anything from half an hour to 4 hours on making the track.
The whole thing.
Yeah, just an idea, and then rearranging it you can take any time. Yeah. It's just a matter of what I'll get down. But generally, I feel like once I've got the idea down, then it's just a matter of elaborating on it. So I try not to spend too much. I feel like you can overcook it, man. Do you know what I mean? Sure. It's I feel like sometimes you can just overthink. Even with mixing down, you overthink it, and you end up having to just restart the whole thing again. Mm-hmm. So I try not to spend too much time in it, and I've kept that throughout my whole Roska career. Sure. Just minimize that.
Limiter done. Yeah,
that's it. Slap the limiter on. I might even have a limiter on this one, actually. Let's have a look. I've got the ozone stuff on there, so yeah.
But there is a limiter.
Yeah, there's a limiter on there. Again, with this. So again, with this, it's like I was saying before, I use a lot of contacts. Native Instruments is sort of my go-to plugin. It's just so much you can do in there. There's a lot of real live instruments and sort of things like this, just weird stuff that you can mess with that maybe no one's going to use, or you can just try and find a way to mess about with it. So yeah, with that, and then got 2 different variations of that. Cool. And then just the bass as well. I think got 2 versions.
Cool. It's a very nice 808 there.
Yeah.
Very punchy. And that you use the same 808 for the tuning of that?
Yeah. So I use a plugin called R-Bass on that. So if I take that off.
Okay, big difference.
So it just adds a little bit of weight onto it, just to kind of give it a bit more depth, and just keep it raw and club ready.
And no compression again, it's just a raw sample with some sub.
Yeah, just keep it raw.
Yeah.
And then it's got the
Roska.
Yeah.
The standard.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah.
Calling yourself.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny. I used to MC as well. So when I was making a lot of my early tunes, I was MCing as well. So garage and grime was all sort of all my thing. And then that was kind of taken from a tape, and then I just kind of because me and my cousin used to record garage sets and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, that's it really with that. It's really minimal. I kept it as minimal, and I wanted to keep it as simple and effective as possible to kind of give it, you know, just make it easier enough for Nakamura, the rapper, to just do her thing and see where I take it. And then it was either I build on it or leave it as is, and it just felt right. It just felt right the way it was.
So you initial build, send the loop to Nakamura, and then she just rhymed the whole. Yeah, where did they go from there?
So she sent the vocals over to me, and I mixed it in my studio. I mixed the vocals, I mixed the track, and I mastered the track myself as well. Yeah. So I mean,
can we see that? Yeah, can you open up the other one?
I will do. Yeah. So the other ones this has a VIP as well. I don't know where I'll put the other one. So yeah, we can play the VIP. So with the vocals, I mix vocals down in Logic, and then I bounce them as one stem, and then put them back into Fruity Loops.
For what reason?
I just feel like Logic's cleaner. It's easier as well to just process vocals, and it feels a bit more easier as well. I feel like Fruity Loops good for beat making and getting the beats ready, but I feel like if with Logic, you can just do a little bit more.
And so, do you think that if you built this beat in Logic, would it have been the same?
No.
For what reason?
I don't know what it is, but there's something in FL that it feels right, and I think the step edit helps a lot as well. It's user friendly. I can get the beats down much more quicker in here than I can get in Logic. It's like little thing. Maybe it's just mentally. Maybe I could do it, but I don't think I would get that same vibe. I feel like Fruity Loops gives me that edge over. So with the vocals, I mix the vocals myself.
Primi chuchuchui, loading chuchuchuni. Primi chuchuchui, loading chuchuchuni. Ay, 辻堂 to ロンドン、中村みなみ、風呂温めますかそれとも私にしますか He said that me girl そもそもあんたを知らねえなクレパス on my body ポスカ塗る髪目立ちたがり耳 Trust me 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 やったクジラが跳ねたシャンパン逆さのシャワーラッパー太鼓のマスター頭に夢パケラパケラやっぱシャッターただただ暴れなラスカ kicks and snare 鳴らすな
Great. I love the fact that you've just used Logic specifically for processing the vocal.
Yeah.
Audio, I guess you've got some automation going with the effects and stuff, and then just bounce it down.
Yeah.
Then when you bring it into Fruity, you're just dealing with one track. That's it.
Yeah.
Which is actually really great.
I'll add maybe I do add a few bits here and there depending. Like so, I might let's have a look at my. So.
Loading chuchuchuni.
I think no, I haven't used anything on that. So okay, so now and then I do a bit of processing on some vocals like that might need a little bit extra, but I don't think that's even on a channel. Let's have a look. No, it's not on a channel. So that's fine. Yeah.
So did you use Japanese? Did you use Google to sort out some of the translating for this one?
It's one of the guys that manages her. He used to live in LA. So luckily we talk on this. It's like their WhatsApp's called Line, and we just talk in English, man. So but there was another artist. I was talking to so I worked on this track with another artist over there called Akko, and she done like an EP. So we released a track on their EP, and I was talking to her by Google Translate. I didn't realize she could speak English as well. So it's crazy. But literally I was just sitting Google Translate, and she's like, I'd like a tune for my EP. So it's like it's just trying to find that balance of like the language barrier, but it's good because it makes me want to learn it as well. And I started to learn it over lockdown, but there's so much going on. So I literally that's over my head already. Literally, I was trying my best to learn it, man. But I couldn't find the time to do it. So there's one thing on my list that I need to do. Yeah.
So it's an amazing language.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just really not obsessed, but I really. What's great about your productions is that obviously your choice of sounds is obviously excellent, right? But just this idea of simplicity. I think sometimes as producers, as you said, we can overthink things, over-process, and it's just actually really refreshing just to see a fantastic sounding track.
Yeah.
But it is fantastic and it's really refined and simple, right? Particularly with the vocal, because I mean, I don't, and I've never whenever I work with vocals, I always pride myself on having 50 tracks, you know, with like lots of detail, and I spend a lot of energy making it sound great, right?
Yeah.
Which has a value to me sometimes. But actually, sometimes it's good to just actually make, you know, just refine your ideas. And so long as it sounds great, you don't need 50 tracks. You can, if it sounds great, just bounce it down the stereo mix. It's done.
Yeah.
You can just focus on other things.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. You know, a lot of my peers, like I've seen a lot of producers, artists, musicians that that they've spent so much time focusing on perfecting one track that they could have made another 10 in that time, and it's just knowing when you got to stop. When is the cutoff point? When do you call the cutoff point on your track? When is it time to go? Okay, cool. You know what? That's done now. You know, when are you gonna be happy with it? And that's what it boils down to. If you want to be releasing music all the time, you've got to just work out that moment where you go, okay, cool, I'm done now. We move on to the next one.
Before I offer up to these guys if they've got questions,
Yeah.
Was there anything particularly challenging about this track? It feels quite fluid from the way you're talking about it. Was there anything else challenging?
No, it's easy, man. The guys are easy. They had a lot of stuff going on at the time, so the release they got pushed back. That was probably the only challenging thing. But it worked in our favor. So everything happens for a reason. I'll say with things like that. So
And on the production side of things, I guess it was pretty fluid.
Simple, man. It was everything was just. I'm very relaxed when it comes to music and releasing it. I don't try and get too stressed because it's a fun thing. This is a thing where I see it as like anybody would want to be in a position where I'm at making music and want to be touring and stuff like. So it's like I don't take that for granted. You know what I mean? So I always look at it and think, you know what, like I've got to enjoy it. I've got to look back and enjoy what I've done and what I'm doing right now. And that's what I look at when I do these things. So everything is always sweet sailing most of the time. But with this one, I can't say there was anything that really stuck out to make me think, you know what, yeah.
Awesome. So you guys, you got any questions you'd like to ask?
How do you know when your track's done?
I have a rough idea of what I want to put in my tunes each time. So, I would always start with like drums, melody, bass, effects. And I mix as I go along, so I know how it's sounding as I get to a certain point. If I feel like I can't get the mix right, I'll take all the effects off and I'll start again. But generally, I'll go through, and once I've got to a point where I've arranged it and it's got to a point where I feel like it's either club ready or ready for an artist, that's when I'll know when it's done. So it's kind of just ticking boxes on what I'm used to hearing and what I know from what my Roska project requires to be a complete track.
Thank you. Cool. Anyone else? Cool. Go for it.
Yeah, you said you master your own track.
Yeah.
Is there any other mixdown engineer involved before it gets put to CD or Spotify, or is there a big process for mastering for MP3, for instance, or for vinyl?
I think I used to use 1087 mastering for my mastering, but I generally use that for like bigger projects, like stuff like singles. Like even with this one as well, I mastered it myself. I just use like Isotope Ozone just to master it.
Have you still got the Isotope plug-in on there now?
Yeah, I think
Can we
so.
have a quick look?
I don't think it's on. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, so I just use and this is something that my mastering engineer showed me as well. I don't think I generally use like one of the presets and just tweak on the EQ, and then I have like just a vintage limiter on it, and that's about it really, because a lot of the sounds that I use are quite clean. I don't really have to do too much, and generally, if I feel that it's beyond me being able to master it or get it to how I want it to sound, then I'll generally send it away. But that's only come with time with me. It's like I started just using the limiter, and then I got to a point where I need my music a bit more cleaner. Then I started sitting in on sessions with masterers and getting to understand what I need to do before I get to the mastering process, and making my tracks cleaner, making a bit more digestible, taking off enough low end, not making it too toppy as well. And then I get to a point where my ears are tuned enough to be able to hear what a mastered track should sound like, or what my track should sound like mastered. comparing it to some of my tracks that have been mastered as well. So yeah, that's what I get to or how I know when I got to a mastered state.
On the subject of mastering, so in terms of the actual master file,
Yeah.
do you tend to make different versions? Because a lot of the time there's this talk about having one master for for CD, one for streaming services, and etc. etc. What's your approach to creating a master?
I mean, I generally just try and make the master one master, and I try and work out how it like. So on the last track I mastered was a track called I Know, which came out a few months ago, and I tried that on so many different speakers just to get that, just to work out how it would sound on each. So I had it on a Bluetooth speaker, I had it on my speaker in my car, in my studio, and on my phone. I just wanted to hear how it sounded on all the different formats before I put it out. So generally I try and do that before I get to putting it out. If I get why people would say you need to, or why you need to a Spotify version, CD version. You get what I'm saying? But I feel like, again, you're just overcomplicating it. I feel like, again, it's just simplifying it for me. I feel like if I got the sound that I want, because a lot of my tunes, it's more for clubs anyway. Yeah. So having it on Spotify and stuff like that, I feel like, okay, cool. But it was more for the clubs. But then as like lockdown hit, it's like, there's no clubs. So yeah, what do I do? Do you know what I mean? So then I've had to kind of work out and listen to do a bit more sound testing and listening to kind of get that sound right. And just find that middle ground rather than sort of like doing so many different formats or sound formats or
And how valuable has Ozone been in terms of your work, mastering workflow? I guess was it the tool that gave you the confidence to say, I can master my own tracks?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a funny story. So the guy that masters my tunes, he took long. He started taking long to get the tunes back. So I started thinking, you know what? Let me just try it myself. Same with my studio. The guy took too long to get back to me to, give me the quote back so I can say, yep. You know what I mean? I just thought, you know what, let me try it and see what happens, And yeah, it's been trial and error, and, got to a point where I'm like, okay, cool. I can do that. And, if I do bigger things like an album, I'd want that to go to a mastering engineer and get that done professionally, because it's a bigger project. But singles, I'm not too sentimental about, as long as it sounds good, I feel that it sounds good. I'm comfortable with it. I'm happy with where it is. I've tested it out. I've got a few other people that have tested it out. I'll go and release it. Yeah.
Cool. So you answer your question? Yeah. Fantastic.
Oh, wicked.
Cool. You had a question here at the front.
I was going to say, so you mentioned you were boys with Swindle before.
Yep.
Notoriously sort of like instrumentalist.
Yeah.
Sort of studio based.
Yeah.
You say you like to work in the box a bit more, but I get sort of like a clear sort of melodic understanding from you. I can hear it. I don't know. You say like to keep it simple, but
Yeah.
all the hooks they always just bang. I wondered if you had any advice on sort of how to develop the sort of melodic parts of your productions.
Yeah.
That sort of club-driven bass heavy sound. Because that's what I always struggle with, man.
Yeah.
Like keeping the bass, but like having it melodic as well.
Yeah, I feel like you just need to. I feel like me learning to be melodic and like work out keys and stuff like that. It comes with time as well. But it's like, even just getting tutorials online and just working out like just basic key structures and stuff like that. And even listening to there's like a lot of like garage, like the poppy sort of garage tunes as well. Listening to those, man, a lot of those are, they have a lot of like the key changes and just the way they're structured as well. Just as an example of how they work, and just understanding what you can do and what your limits are with making a bass. So like, and even with like working on melodies with bass, it's like one thing you can do is like put the bass in like a few octaves higher, work out the melody, and just drop it down and then sometimes you get a nice melody that way as well.
Yeah. So I guess you use yourself drums and you can
Yeah.
so your bass mets and then get the melody.
I'd work out what bass I'm going to use generally. I use a lot of sub bass, so it kind of makes it a bit more easier. But usually I'll try and find a melody. Sometimes I'll find a melody first, and then I'll work out the drums. But ideally the drums, because I know what genre I'm going to use it in, and then I'll work out the melody. But what I do is sometimes I'll take away specific parts of the drums, like maybe the kicks and the snares away, just so I can take away from it being that genre, just so I can work out a different melody and understand so I don't get in a sort of like a repetitive process of making the same sort of sound each time. You know what I mean? So yeah, just those ideas. So yeah, definitely try and like pitch the bass up so it's like sounding like a piano, and then work out a melody and then just drop it down and see how it sounds and then just jig it around. Yeah.
You know what you can do when you get her back, right? You know that. Cool. Anyone else? Go for it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, so I generally do it when I'm making the drums. When I'm making the drums, then I'll quantize, I'll mess about and give it a different swing. And then when it comes to the melody, depending on how the melody's set, then I'll have to either snap it back to the grid or work how I want it to actually, how I'm going to actually fit it in. Because sometimes I can work on percussion and it clashes with the actual melody, whether I'm using like horn strings or like a standard synth. But I try and make sure that everything kind of matches up. And then if there is space, then I can mess about with the, quantize a little bit more and give it a little bit more of a swing. I do a lot of it on like either I do it mainly on my keyboard mainly. I've got a drum machine as well, the Contact One, the
Machina.
Yeah, machine. That's it. Yeah. So I use that now and then, but mainly the keyboard. I work it in and then I'll either quantize it or sometimes I'll just draw them in. Like I know what the Roska sound kind of entails, so I can draw in a lot of drums or work out how or where I want the snares or the hats to be, and then I kind of just experiment from there and try and make it different from the next track, so they're not all the same or they're all all similar.
Nice one. Anyone else? Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I trust my own instinct most of the time. Sometimes I'll go like I moved to Kent, so I'm near Swindle, so I'll go to Swindle's studio, or I'll send it to a few other people that I know, and just kind of get a rough idea if they can hear anything or if there's any ideas or whatever. But most of the time, it's all in-house. I kind of know what I need from that track, and also if I'm working with a vocalist, they'll have ideas as well. I'm always open to hearing what vocalists want to hear or want to take out or want to move around as well. So, I always keep it open, keep the palette open, rather than just kind of keeping it all in-house.
No, your openness is great. So, apart from Roska, the producer, there's also Roska, the accountant, right?
Yeah.
Who looks after the label.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Or is his name Roska or is it something else?
No, yes, Roska or Wayne, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so how do you, navigate obviously making music and also running a label and obviously all the other responsibilities around, your music ecosystem? How do you manage that?
I usually when I was working, I was working at O2 shop in Sutton, and I was working in Clapham as well, and I worked my way from part-time to acting manager. And when I was assistant manager, then acting manager, I was managing a team of 9. So I had to structure my day. I had to learn how to, do specific things for the day, whether it's an appraisal, whether it is just, the stock take or whatever. So as time got on, those things became a part of my life, as in it kept me organized. So when I left work and I went into music full time, I wanted to keep that structure in. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to do specific things on specific days. So even on Sundays, I would write a list of stuff that I need to do for the week. Mondays, I'd probably do admin, and then I'd do studio, and then work to the end of the week, if I've got a show or if I'm going to do something else on the weekend. So that's how I'd work out what I've got to do. So our admin stuff would be on a Monday. I'll do label stuff, work out what I need to do for the week.
That's Wayne.
Yeah.
Yep, cool.
And then, yeah, it's usually Roska for the rest of the week. Yeah.
Or the alter ego.
That's it.
Depending
Yeah.
again, yeah.
That's it.
Do they alternate days sometimes?
Yeah. So it just depends.
If Wednesday's like Roska, Roska's tired.
Yeah.
Let alter ego come through.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'd generally work out what I need to do. So I'd have a list of music that needs to be either worked on or finished, and then I'll work on those, depending on who I'm working for, and then, yeah, go forward.
But what happens when, things get really, really hectic? I mean, it feels to me that you're very organised and,
Yeah.
Very structured, which is fantastic to hear, but when it gets too much, how do you deal with that?
So I'll go through periods with the label where we'll have releases, and then I'll give myself a break, because there was a period where I went non-stop, and we'd had like every 6 weeks we had a release out, and I was doing a lot of it myself, and I kind of felt burnt out. So then what I'll do is I'd make sure I have periods where I'll just stop, and I'll continue where I left off when everything's calmed down. So if I go on tour, I'd make sure there's no releases scheduled around there. So no one, if it's my own release, or if it's my own release, then I'm fine with it, because I can talk about it and whatever. But I'd make sure that if it's someone else's release, I'm giving it 100%. So I'd make sure it's not around when I'm touring or when I'm doing specific other things. But yeah, generally I try and keep everything within its own box. If it does get busy, I do have people I can rely on. I don't the accounting side. I've got someone that does my accounting for me as well. So. And then also got the distributors as well, which is a small distribution company, and they're like, you can contact them anytime for help, advice, or anything. So and they're always willing to help. So yeah, it's good to have like small unit of people that you can talk to, rely on, and speak to. If you need to change a release date, you can do that in no time. Do you know what I mean? So kind of keep it small, but yeah.
So generally, this is the kind of advice that you'd give to producers who want to obviously maintain being an artist, and manage an alter ego, but also manage a label, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. One of the things I always do is if I'm releasing on another label, I've got my own label to rely on as well. So I'm not relying on that person for a repeat release or relying on them for anything. I always make sure that I can go back to Roska Kicks, there's my label, and do what I need to do as well. So I've got and I'll make sure that I think I own about 60 to 70% of my own music still. So I kind of make sure that I've got most of my catalogue as well, which is most important.
Are you published as well?
Yeah, I've got publishing as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that comes in handy every so often, right?
Yeah. So they collect royalties from places that I wouldn't even have dreamt my music being played, and they push my music to be synced as well, and they also send me briefs as well for any advert opportunities as well. So yeah.
So what other advice would you give to producers who want to have a bit of have some control over their own destiny, but also are very time precious or time poor, I should say?
I think you just got to be organised, write things down, have a schedule, just to understand where you want to be. Have like a long-term schedule and a short-term schedule. So it could be a year, where you want to be in a year, obviously realistic, and then have like a weekly one or a monthly one of what you want to do throughout the week, whether you want to make 1 tune a week, 2 tunes a week, or 1 tune a month. You want to learn this. And what I do is I take time to learn, not as much now, but if I do it on the fly now, if I want to learn how to do something, I'd go on YouTube, go and look at a tutorial and pick it up. But, always give time for yourself to learn and understand what you want to do and where you want to be and where your music fits in, whether it's club music, radio music, or whatever music it is. Just understand where you want to take it and where you want to position yourself in music, and even if it's just for fun, just work out how you want to improve that and how you want to make it better, and build upon what you have currently, because there's always ways to learn, there's always ways to build up and make your thing even better than it is, or and always take advice as well. Just don't feel, some people don't know how to criticize and be criticized as well. So it's just being open to understanding and listening to what you can do differently, or what you can or what you shouldn't do, or what you don't need to do. So, yeah.
So what releases you've got coming up, and what music are you listening to now that's kind of influencing you as a producer?
My next release is should be about November, end of November. It's called Kaboom, with a drum and bass MC called GQ. And then after that, I'm working on my album. So I've got an album coming out middle of next year, and I should have a few singles and stuff before that as well. But yeah, that's me musically. I've kind of been just kind of slowing down, kind of working out what I want to do next, and also just taking my time as well, because I've released a lot of music, so I kind of feel I don't need to release as much as I do, but just kind of, you know, take time. And I do like releasing a lot more vocal stuff as well, so I've been doing a lot more vocal stuff. As for music I listen to, it's a lot of different stuff, man. So like I listen to a bit of drill, but every month I set a playlist of like 10, 15 tracks in my car of what I, you know, just stuff. It could be like hip hop, boom bap hip hop in there, like Onyx Slam I had on last month's playlist, and anything from like R&B. I just kind of like want to just hear music and just hear just different sounds and kind of like, you know, just take it in, man, and just let it breathe, man. And you know, I listen to a lot of my own stuff as well. I do like playing my own music, not from like an egotistical point of view, but like more of like I make a lot of my music for myself, and you know, like I'll play a lot of it. My daughters love my music, so they always want to hear it. So I have no choice sometimes to play it. You know, it's cringy. So yeah.
Any of the tracks that you're, you know, sick of?
I had a track called Higher on one with Jamie George, and we done a video for it at Tower Bridge. And yeah, my oldest, like when she was she's 8 now, but when she was like 4, she would sing it constantly. And literally, we had no journey was complete without having that song on. So yeah, that kind of like got worn down for a bit, but yeah.
But for good reason, though.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Roska, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
No,
Give it
thank
up for
you for
Roska,
having me.
man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. Thank you.
Awesome.